I know you're a sports junkie. Have you ever seen a team like Westwood Boys Hoops? Those three guys compete?
Three, two, one.
All right, guys, we're back. It's Thursday night. We're here at the Craft Emporium, top of Ohio Radon in the garage. We got a decent little crew here tonight. Won't be as loud tonight. We're missing one key member of the loud crew, so it'll be a little tamer existence. But got what I refer to today on Facebook. I know you don't look at Facebook a whole lot, Tips, as the godfather of local media. William Frederick Tipple, kind of becoming a co-host of sorts here in the garage.
I'm good.
We'd love to have you every week. I know you've been busy tonight. We're glad to have you. Always, I don't think anybody knows more local sports than you, Tips. I think that is, I might be catching a little bit on the history stuff because I'm reading about it all the time. But I still think you got your thumb on the pulse of a little bit of everything here in Logan County. Agree or disagree?
I can dabble. I'm still not sure I'm as good as you, but that's, if I can't figure it out, you'll know it, and vice versa.
You know every nook and cranny in the county, all the sports too, not just the high profile ones. You can talk bowling, you can talk swimming, you can talk wrestling with the best of them. What I want to talk about tonight, and I'm always thinking about this topic because I feel like every 3, 4, 5 years it comes up, and I know you've got some opinions about it. I was intrigued by yesterday's announcement that Bethel officially released that they are leaving the Three Rivers Conference, which has been in existence for 2, 3 years, maybe 4 years at most.
I'll say 4.
Three Rivers is the home of Logan County School Riverside. Includes, I want to say, Covington, Sidney Lehman. Who else is in there? Miami East, definitely. Northridge.
Bethel. There's a couple.
A lot of the smaller schools along the I-75 corridor. Riverside is kind of the northernmost school. I don't know who the southernmost would be. Bethel is down around there, I would guess.
The southernmost is Northridge, but what about Milton Union?
Milton Union,
really
nice
good
program. So this Three Rivers Conference has only been in existence for a few years. Now, I think there was a conference called the Three Rivers many years ago. Indian Lake was in it in the 70s, and that was called Three Rivers. Quite a few different schools. Versailles was definitely in it. I want to say Graham was in it. I think Springfield Catholic was in it. And that eventually became the Southwestern Rivers Conference, which, we could do, there's a lot of moving and shaking there. But Bethel, Tip City Bethel. Now, tell me a little bit about Bethel. I always say Bethel is the Ben Logan of Tip City. Is that true?
Well, I'm gonna have a few opinions on that. I don't know if I take these to the bank, but the first part you can take to the bank, where they're maybe different than Benjamin Logan. Maybe they were, but they have grown so much. And Benjamin Logan's grown there a decent amount the last 10 years.
And when I say that, I mean the county school.
County school,
County
but
seat.
they are. I think a better comparison right now would be Jonathan Alder. They had a housing boom. They are. If they're not bigger than Bo Fountain right now, I'll bet they will be in 5 years.
They're called Tip City Bethel, though, so that means.
Bethel's Bethel Township.
Okay.
So it's just outside of Tip City.
Okay. So maybe the Ben Logan's not quite accurate then. It's not
I'd say
the
more
rural.
Jonathan,
It's not the
like
rural part of the
housing,
county.
Housing.
So it's a school that was West Liberty, Salem type
Yes,
size for
not
a
that
long
ago,
time.
but this has all changed the last, I'd say, about 15 years.
They first got on my radar last year when Bell Fountain Chieftains played them in the tournament basketball game.
they'll
I
do
was
it again on
stunned.
Saturday.
Exactly, in 2 days. I was stunned to see that Bell Fountain was playing Bethel, and I thought, what is going on? And then, asked around and said, they're getting a lot bigger. So Bethel has decided that they want to leave the Three Rivers, which does make some sense that if you're going to be the size of Bell Fountain, you're not going to play in a conference with Riverside. They're joining the Central Buckeye Conference. Maybe not so well known is that Greenan, a former Central Buckeye Conference member, has already announced, and this got by me. I had heard the rumors, but I read it online. They had an official release about a month ago that said they were joining the CBC. The CBC has not acted. I think that's a formality, though, and I don't know when that occurs in the coming weeks.
It's going to happen. Now, my opinion is, you're probably more of the opinion guy, but I'm going to throw this out there. For Bethel, it makes a lot of sense, especially when you look into the future, the next 5 or 10 years of enrollment and school size. If you're kind of new to the sports scene, a lot of this to me is based on enrollment. Now, some of it might be competitive, who you're competitive with, but you're not going to see like the St. Henrys of Ohio, even though they're great in sports, play like the Marysvilles of Ohio. It just doesn't work like that. It's pretty much based on enrollment, I would say.
Which I think that is overdone. If I was a school administrator or I was any kind of administrator that had any say, I think enrollment is overrated. Now, I understand on some level it matters. I get that, no doubt. But I would not be held hostage by my enrollment. If I was a smaller school that competed consistently across the board in athletics, I would not be afraid to play schools with bigger enrollment. Now, where that can be an issue, and I think this is getting back to Bethel, schools with less enrollment tend to have less sports. A small school the size of Riverside is not going to have swimmers, and if they do have a swimmer, it's going to be a couple kids. They're not going to have the same size golf team. They're not going to have tennis. Some of those sports, they don't have wrestling. And Bethel, what I was told was they wanted to be with schools that had all the sports, and that does make a lot of sense.
Well, Bethel makes sense to me, but I got a question for you about Greenon here. To me, Greenon, you could argue them enrollment-wise for the OHC or the CBC.
Well, they were already in the CBC, so.
But they're not. The thing is, they're not. Unless I'm missing the boat,
They're not any good.
They're not that great.
No, they're fairly pitiful in football, and I think they've been relatively pitiful in basketball. Where they are decent, it sounds like, and I could be wrong, it sounds like they're decent in the other sports, the soccers, those type of things. And now some of this stuff I'm getting off online message boards, so careful what you believe, but it sounded like they were frustrated with the OHC's competition in those sports. Now, what I would ask the people of Greenon, I don't know anyone from Greenon. I mean, it's a school that's kind of always been off my radar. You were just in the CBC, 10 years ago, if that? They leave the Central Buckeye Conference to go to the OHC, and I think they went there because they were getting their teeth kicked in football. And now what they found is I don't think they're winning a ton of games in the OHC, and the argument can be made, it's a whole other topic. The Mad River division in football specifically is not particularly any tougher than the Ohio Heritage Conference North Division. West Liberty Salem's better than just about every team in the Mad River. I mean, they beat Indian Lake in the playoffs. Obviously, it's a really good game, but yeah, you're not going there and suddenly just going to play. Now, if you played Southeastern, Cedarville, Springfield Catholic, Madison Plains, that's weaker. But that's the southern part, I believe, of that league. So, the CBC, I want to get into. I think we know why Bethel's joining. Now, my concern is geography, because I do think geography matters. I think geography matters way more to me than enrollment. I, as a guy that has gotten on buses many, many times in my life on weeknights for fairly non-important sporting events, if that makes sense, like a middle school wrestling tri-meet, I don't like driving an hour and 20 minutes on a Wednesday night. I just don't. It's not good for sports. So Bethel's location, which I looked it up, now the good news is Bethel is no more than 56 minutes from BHS and Older, exactly 56 minutes from both. So I would say that is within an hour is kind of my number. If you stay below an hour, I'm good. If you start getting too much above an hour, I struggle. Greenon, on the other hand, kind of off topic, but they are an hour and 23 minutes from North Union. That's going to cause an issue. Now that's according to MapQuest, but that's too long. That is not a trip you want to be making with middle school basketball, double header type stuff on a Tuesday night. So, I understand Bethel, why they want to get in. Greenon, I don't really know. I mean, it'd be interesting to talk to somebody that does know. Like, would they just say, hey, we think we made a mistake? And, okay, fair enough. You made a mistake, come back. I want to talk about the CBC because I think that there's a chance, and I think it's more than a small chance, that this is the first domino in a series of dominoes. And you've been around long enough that it seems like every 5, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it is, we see this seismic shift. The last seismic shift would be 2000, right? Like the CBC expands, the WCOC, West Central Ohio Conference breaks up, the OHC is formed. There's been some changes since then, but that was the last seismic shift. It feels a little bit like we're due for another seismic shift. And I'm not encouraging it. I hope that it doesn't happen. As a Bell Fountain guy, I think a seismic shift could be trouble for the Chiefs. We've talked about that in the past, that Bell Fountain, unlike other schools, is somewhat limited in who they can join a conference with due to size and geography. So I do want to get into my concerns with the CBC. I know there are several schools in the CBC that are not totally happy, and there's degrees of totally not happy. I know for a fact that Graham, and I know this for a fact, that Graham has shown interest in leaving. I think
I'd say multiple times.
yes. Now, my first question is them. Bethel leaves the TRC. That means there's an opening in the TRC. Does Graham apply to go to the TRC? Now, my assumption is someone's had that conversation. I hope somebody that gets paid more than I do, which is basically nothing to do this podcast. I would hope they ask the question of, Graham, are you leaving to take Bethel's spot? Now, because the problem is if you're bringing Greenan in, if you swap Graham and Bethel, you're actually okay. I don't love it, but you could do it. You can't swap Greenan and Bethel for Graham. Do you have that same concern about Graham?
You know, I'm just kind of giving my gut here, Rick. I know where you're going with this because they've been a hot potato looking at it a few times, but I don't think so. And a lot of this, let's not kid ourselves. Half of this, at least, is football. When you don't do well in football, one of the excuses or easy answers is let's just leave to play other teams that are smaller and not as good. But there's all these other sports. There's other teams that are pretty close by, Urbana. Fountain's not that far away, and they would be so much bigger, and I think it would be so much easier in the TRC. I don't think, the reason I'm going to say that, I don't think the TRC is the answer. I don't think they're going
For Graham?
Right.
Geography would be pretty good.
Geography's good.
That's probably no more than a 35-minute drive to about every school.
Right. Geography's good, but I mean, in so many of the sports, it's not going to get you ready and battle tested for postseasons, in my opinion.
Are you battle tested for postseason right now if you're Graham? There really is no postseason for you if you're Graham football. I mean, I know there is a postseason, but here's the other thing is, I think the theory is the reason that Graham in particular may be pacified, for lack of a better term, is the existence of Greenan and Bethel. Bethel will come to the Kenton Trail side. Greenan will go to the Mad River. They will now eliminate one crossover game. So the big bugaboo with these schools in the Mad River, because really this is all coming from the Mad River. The three schools that I've heard have complained the most are Graham, Benjamin Logan, and North Union. They have all expressed loudly that they're unhappy.
That is correct.
What they hate is the crossovers. A couple years ago, we did 3 crossovers, and that about ended the league. That's when before London came. So the 2 crossovers they don't like. They want to play 1 crossover. And if anybody's listening and doesn't know what that means, is you play the teams in your Kenton Trail and/or Mad River side, and then you play a team in the opposite. Generally, the Kenton Trail is quite a bit stronger than the Mad River. The Londons, the Alders, the Bellefontaine's of the world are generally much stronger than the Mad River teams. And this adding of the 7th team in each division will add a conference game that will replace the crossover.
So 5 through 10, weeks 5 through 10 are conference.
Weeks 5 through 10 will be conference. So like for Bellefontaine, if someone here is saying, okay, how does this affect Bellefontaine? I almost am certain Bellefontaine will no longer play Benjamin Logan in football.
I agree.
Ben Logan has stated, I'm not telling any secrets here, Benjamin Logan's administration has said they don't want to play the game. And so that will eliminate the Ben Logan Bellefontaine football game. Indian Lake, on the other hand, I think they've always been okay playing Bellefontaine. And certainly they've won. I mean, I don't know, it's like 6 times in the last 18 years. So it's certainly plenty to keep you interested. So Ben Logan will then just play their 1 crossover, and I don't know, who's been London, right?
Jonathan Alder.
Jonathan Alder. So yeah, and in fairness to Ben Logan, they have had the short end of the stick on those crossovers. When you're getting, because what they would say is, hey, why can't we play crossover versus Urbana, which would certainly over the last decade, in theory, be more wins. So that should pacify, I hope, Graham and Benjamin Logan and North Union, because North Union had the same complaint, and their head football coach is their AD. Coach Hajar is the AD and football coach.
Yeah, but I don't understand what I'm going to call him out a little bit here.
I like that. Hey, it's good for ratings. Go ahead.
Well, I know they weren't very good last year, and they were in 23. But they were good a long time. So you kind of lose credibility when you start complaining about it when you start losing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. I struggle with, if you're in a conference, to me, you're in a conference. And I've always struggled with hey, we're in a conference, someone we don't want to play them. Now, what I'm going to propose here in a little bit, I'm going to promise you that these schools don't have to play each other. What the eternal struggle is, so you're going to be in a small conference where you play everybody, but the problem is the moment one team leaves, you can be screwed. The WCOC saw this for years. When I played the WCOC in the 90s, we had an odd number of teams. So we played an out-of-conference game every week. Someone in the league did. Like at West Liberty Salem, I would say week 7 or 8, we played Upper Scioto for a couple of years, and we played Mississinawa Valley for a couple of years. Nobody likes doing that. As a player, you don't really care. As an AD, you hate it. Because every year you got to find a team. You're trying to fill this schedule late in the season. And the problem is everybody else is in a conference. So how do you find a team? Honestly, what you end up finding is either really good teams like Cincinnati Moeller, which I know is excessive, or a really bad team like Mississinawa Valley. You don't find the in-between. Or you get lucky and you find another conference that's got the same problem. But so the reason for the big conferences is it does give you strength in numbers. You can kind of weather the storm. The most famous one is the OCC in Columbus, the Ohio Capital, right? Ohio Capital. 30-some teams, would you say?
Yeah, that's it.
And they have finagled around, and they're constantly morphing. And the other nice thing is if a school like Bethel gets bigger, you can slide them, and maybe a school's not doing as well. Hey, it's time to go down. So as much as I'm not a mega conference guy, especially for Bellefontain's future, I would argue if I was sitting in that athletic director's desk or the superintendent's desk, I would be talking to people. Because the problem with Bellefontaine, and we've said this before, is if it falls apart, there's just not that many options. Whereas in a Benjamin Logan or an Indian Lake, they're like the perfect size where they can kind of go either way. They can go bigger with London, Alder, and Bellefontaine, or they can go smaller with the West Libs and even the Mechanicsburgs of the world. So hopefully the addition has led to stability. Now, what I believe will happen is a couple years will go by and something will shake, and within 5 years we're going to be looking at possibly everything changing. So I came up with a solution. I don't think any of the people that are in charge care what I think. But
Well, I do. I'm interested.
you're not in charge.
I'm interested in this.
But, the problem with the conference is you got to take into account, enrollment to a certain degree, even though I don't value it as much as maybe others. It does matter. You can't have Bellefontaine in the league with Riverside, even though I'm about to put Bellefontaine in the league with Riverside. They're just not going to play each other. Geography matters within an hour. I also think culture matters. Like, it's kind of like you don't want a super rural country school in the same conference with a big city private school. Those just don't really mesh. And it's not that you can't do it. There's something about having like-minded institutions together, I think, that makes some sense. So what I came up with was basically a combination of the OHC and the CBC. It's really not that earth-shattering. You've got 24 teams between the two. CBC's 12 and OHC is 12. Now, what I want to do, and part of this is biased to Logan County, is I want to bring in Riverside. I think that Riverside probably dropped the ball when they didn't join the OHC. There's been some rumors that when that all went down, that this is 20-some years ago, so whoever was responsible is long gone, not dead, but just retired, I assume, that they didn't go to like a vote. It's like 25 years ago, and they missed out. I would guess if you asked Riverside people, hey, would you rather been in the OHC all these years, they'd say yes. You agree?
Yes, absolutely.
They belonged in it. They fit well with West Lib, Triad, and Berg especially, and they're fine with those Springfield schools as well. So we're going to fix that for Riverside. We're going to bring them back. So what I came up with the big side, obviously you want to put the biggest schools together: Bellefontaine, Tecumseh, Shawnee, KR, Urbana, London, Alder, and Bethel. There's nothing controversial about that. Honestly, that's the CBC Kenton Trail, except I brought over, who did I bring over? That is the CBC Kenton Trail.
Well,
That's
Shawnee.
I brought back Shawnee, who's been in the Kenton Trail for most of the last 20 years. So there's nothing about that any of those schools would say a word about. Now, we always do worry about London and Alder. They joined willingly, though. Everyone wants to push them back out the door and say they're going to leave.
I'm worried about, and I haven't heard any peeps from athletic directors or coaches. I'm worried about Alder. I mean, I think that they are a Dublin Jerome 5-10 years from now.
Everybody keeps saying that, and we've said that before. They're in Division IV in football.
Amazing.
So
That guy that counts is not a good man, but okay.
So the argument is that it's a lot of young kids. Is that right? Like the elementary is about to explode,
Yeah.
young families. That may be the case. And if that happens, my argument is if you're in a huge league, you can withstand it better than if Bell Fountain's in a 16 conference and Alder leaves. And I am certainly Bell Fountain biased. I think London is more stable than Alder, and I think you agree with that, right?
I agree.
Because London isn't, they're experiencing the kind of growth.
Not like Alder.
London feels like Bell Fountain to me.
Yeah.
Like it just feels like the same kind of town with the same kind of challenges, the same kind of benefits. So that's fairly uncontroversial. Then the medium size, which is going to look a little like the Kenton Trail, the Mad River, Benjamin Logan, Graham, Indian Lake, West Liberty Salem. So that's the first okay. West Liberty Salem has been good at sports for 25 years. They would be just fine. They play all those schools all the time. They play Graham and Ben Logan almost every year in football. I'm sure they play some of these schools in basketball. They're not going to have any problem playing at that level. Greenon, who is, coming back, Northeastern, Northwestern, and North Union. My biggest issue is this North Union to Greenon drive is an hour and 23 minutes. Now, my comment to that is that's about to happen in the Mad River Division. So someone has told North Union and Greenon, hey, by the way, you're an hour and 20 minutes apart and you're about to be in the same conference, and they're okay with it.
Yep.
And then the small side, Mechanicsburg Triad, it's going to look like a little bit like the WCOC Triad, Riverside, so we're bringing them back from purgatory. Springfield Catholic Central, which scares me because it feels like that's a school that isn't flourishing the way they did 30 years ago.
I agree.
Fairbanks, who
Up and
I
coming.
don't trust them. They are the reason the WCOC fell apart. And if you read Yappy.com, there are rumors that Fairbanks is looking in a different direction. Now, I can't say that's true, but I can tell you those rumors started about Bethel and Greenon 6 months ago, and they came true. So I would always have an eye on Fairbanks. They better act right, or they'll be out of this thing.
But where are they going? Like, where would they go?
East.
Yeah, but there's.
They did that before. Sometimes I think these schools get new administrators that make the same mistakes that the prior administration did. And that's not fair to Fairbanks. I have no idea what they're doing. But you've seen it with other schools where it's like you get a new group of ADs and they have the same conversations that old people had, and then they do the same mistake. I would think Fairbanks would be a fool. Now, the thing they always struggle with, they're in the Central District. Same thing with London, same thing with Alder, same thing with, I would assume, Madison Plains. Those schools don't love that. I don't know why they really care. Now, in fairness, I've never been in that situation. It's like they want to be in a league with the teams in their own district. But I guess my question is, who cares? Because you can always schedule your out of conference towards your district. So then finishing out the small school, Madison Plains, who I'm not sure there's a school I know less about than Madison Plains. If you paid me $1 million and you said you can use no map and no technology, you've got to get to Madison Plains High School in 3 hours. I don't think there's any chance I could get there. I know how to get to London, so I'm getting to Madison County. I'm in the county seat for $1 million. I think I'm heading south. Am I heading south, Tips? Is Madison Plains south of London?
I'll say yes, but I've never been to
So
the
you
school.
don't know either.
I've never been to the school.
What is the town?
I don't think there is a town. I think it's like a Benjamin.
Oh, there's a town. There's a Zanesfield at least. Mount Sterling. There's a town called Mount Sterling.
I've
in
been to
Madison
Mount
Plains.
Sterling. I'm not sure that's Madison Plains School District.
I'm 100% sure that it is Madison Plains.
Okay.
But that's all I know about
It
it.
would be. I do know the answer to this one. It would be southeast of London.
Okay, that makes sense. And I've never really been southeast of London.
Southeast of London.
Mascot, Eagles?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Green, they're green.
Green and yellowish, I believe.
And then last two teams in the small side, West Jefferson, who I'm a big fan of having in a league, and Southeastern. Longest drive in the small side, Riverside to West Jefferson, hour and 12 minutes. That does seem a little goofy. I don't feel like Riverside and West Jefferson were ever supposed to be in a league together, but they are for this purposes. So who is left out? Cedarville and Greenview. I kicked them out.
Yeah, we don't care about
They're really far south.
you made a hell of a league. It's like a rural OCC.
That's kind of what I was going for. But you have to have 24, and there's a reason for that. The problem is I started with 18. The problem is when you go 18 and you start doing crossovers in football, you're all whopper jaw. So the nice thing about 24 is in football, you play 7 division games, which there's no one here that would play each other that would have any problem, and then you play 1 crossover. Now, the way this will work, 4 of the schools in the big side end up having to play 4 of the schools in the small side. Initially, I thought, that's not going to work. I think I've got an answer, though. So you play, like I said, you play 7 weeks. Weeks what? 4 through 10, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. 4 through 10, you're in conference. 80s love that. 80s love to not have to do their jobs and schedule. Week 3, we give them a crossover. So then weeks 1 and 2, they're out of conference. That's perfect. If I'm an AD, I say that's perfect. I get 2 out of conference. I can find a really good school and maybe a tomato can, and then I'll play a crossover and I'll play my league. So week 3 crossovers, I started looking at it saying, can I make decent matchups? I love some of them. Some of them need work. Bell Fountain, we're playing Indian Lake. I think that's easy money. That's no brainer. Tecumseh versus Greenon. That's an old rivalry. They played each other many times in football. Shawnee, this is one that maybe I don't love, versus Fairbanks. I ran out of teams that I could match up in a perfect.
But I think Fairbanks is an up because their enrollment they're getting better.
Dave Carroll's their head football coach.
That helps.
Dave Carroll was at Urbana and then at Clear Fork. Dave Carroll's won a ton of football games. Now there is a lot of rumors online that somehow Dave Carroll's one and done at Fairbanks. I have no idea why. No one seems to have an answer.
Age.
Well,
That's
he's not
TRS.
that old. Oh, you're saying he might retire?
Well, just you do the math. I'm 56. He's about the same age as me. 56. That makes you a teacher for 34 years. I mean,
They're almost saying it in a way though something's happening. Like besides that, I have no idea. But there are posters on there saying, hey, we don't know if Dave Carroll's the head football coach anymore. Which he is absolutely a good football coach. If he stays at Fairbanks, they will be strong. Kenton Ridge, Springfield Catholic. It's not a local though. I'm sure they played each other. Urbana versus West Jefferson. That's actually an old little rivalry. They used to play each other. I feel like they were in the same league, maybe in the 60s and 70s. I feel like Urbana was in a Columbus-based league with London. I could be wrong on that. London versus Northeastern, maybe a little reach. Alder versus North Union, that's a classic matchup. Bethel versus Southeastern, just kind of 2 schools that, who cares. Ben Logan Riverside, I love that one. They've played each other many, many times. Graham and Triad, they have played each other in the out of conference. Be a great Champaign County game. West Liberty, Salem, and Berg, got to have them together, just like Bell Fountain, Indian Lake. You're not going to split up the rivalry. And then Northeastern and Madison Plains. Nobody's going to look at that. Now we might be able to tweak. If we spend some more time on it, let the guys from their school put in a wish list. We might be able to improve a little bit on that. But there's no problems there, right?
I think you got a great plan.
Nobody's going to say, hey, we can't do it. So there's our football, and we know that football is the thing that breaks everything up. Nobody breaks up because of swimming. Nobody breaks up because of basketball.
No.
And basketball is the second most popular sport. Those college guys will tell you, they're constantly getting jerked around because of football. The old 30 for 30 on the Big East, Requiem for, the 30-30. They had the greatest college conference in the history of basketball, and they broke the thing up to add Virginia Tech and Miami, Florida and stuff. So football's king for better or worse. We've got football on lock. Basketball, 14 league games. You play 2, home and home. Everybody does that already. You play 2 crossovers. They don't count though, because they're going to be too different than everybody else. You don't count them. You win your league based on your league games. 14's plenty, and you still got 6 non-league games. Those 2 crossovers, there's no doubt you can find 2. I didn't go through and do it because it'll vary, as the teams get stronger. Nice thing about basketball is like a Springfield Catholic, there's certainly been plenty of times where them in the small school could play the best schools in the big school. I'm not saying that's right now, but they've been there. It's home of Jason Collier, right? Yeah. When Jason Collier was there, they could have played anybody in the league. Baseball, kind of same deal. 14 league games, so home and homes, and then 4 crossovers, and don't count. You pick, just like football, you pick, you put them together, and you pick your 4 best and your small, and they play your 4 worst and your big, and your 4 best here play your 4 best there. I don't see any problems. I mean, other than maybe just a little bit of geography, and maybe some of those schools would say, hey, because they all have their own ideas, if they were all approached with this, I think they'd all consider it at the very least.
Well, some of the people are already set, so you got marriages that are intact already, like, Urbana, London, Alder, Bethel now. Do you think that some of the newbies, and some of these schools, you're a Westwood grad, like West Liberty, Salem, Northeastern, you think they would be fine? You think the smaller ones would be fine too?
Well, let's look at that. So the big side, I think we all agree, everybody would be okay until something like Alder saying, hey, we're too big. And that's going to be what it's going to be. The medium-sized schools, I think Ben Logan, Graham, Indian Lake, West Lib, I don't see any of them not liking this. The only thing I see is the Green into North Union Drive, Northeastern and Northwestern. I don't see what they wouldn't like about it, because that's basically the Mad River division with throw in West Lib. Every one of those schools has been in the Mad River division except West Lib. Northeastern was in it, and Greenon was in it, and about to go back. So I think you're good in these two. The smaller ones where it could get a little, I don't love this southern eastern flank. The Madison Plains, West Jeff, Southeastern. Those were honestly the last 3 schools I put in, and I put them in because I realized 18 teams wasn't going to work.
Well, the other thing is, I don't have any way to gauge this, maybe you do, I don't know, is how happy are the OHCers right now, Triad, Mechanicsburg, Fairbanks. I don't know. I have a better feel with the CBC.
I agree, and I don't know as much either. I have read some stuff on Yappy that maybe some of the southern and smaller schools aren't as happy. Like you said earlier, the teams that are losing are always going to be somewhat unhappy. And I don't know if you can ever avoid that. The only way you can avoid it is have a league like the MAC or the WBL where your tradition is so strong that you don't talk about it. The Fort Recoveries and the New Bremens and the Parkways in the MAC, they kind of just stay quiet. It's like Vanderbilt in the SEC. They keep their mouth shut. The WBL, that's just such a long time conference that teams are like, we're not going to change because we know that life out there on the other side is not as
Well,
good.
they're also like a Bellefontaine, where geographically it's tough.
Agreed.
They have a lot of small schools in those counties, but not a lot of schools that are Division III.
Sometimes I think if we could start from scratch, like if you ignored everything you know about conferences and you let AI do it and you programmed it so enrollment mattered, and you could do this. I can't. Coach Hoyt probably can. Program it to account for enrollment and geography and probably even competitive balance if you did maybe just football. I bet you it'd spit out to you and you'd be a little surprised. Like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Like, Bellefontaine and Kenton are not in the same league. We were, in the WBL days. It makes a lot of sense for Bellefontaine and Kenton. Could you make a league, and now we're getting off track, but if I was Bellefontaine-centric, could I make Bellefontaine, Kenton, Ben Logan, the Lake? I mean, that's 4 really close. Could I go Wapaw, 5,
Upper Sandusky.
North Union, Upper Sandusky? I mean, there you go. You can make a league, put a pin in a map, and say nobody's driving more than an hour. There's not a history there, though, so it's probably unlikely.
Well, plus you got to blow up so many now.
Right. And in this, the thing I like about this, and I know nobody's listening to me, that's fine. I didn't blow up anything, really. I took the OHC and the CBC and combined them, and I stole Riverside, and I kicked out Greenview and Cedarville, essentially. And Bethel's already coming, so I brought them in as well. But, it's just now Greenview and Cedarville might be saying, what about us? What I could see is, would Southeastern and Madison Plains say, yeah, we'd rather just go with Greenview? And that can mess it up. And that's what's happened to these OCC-type conferences. The GWAC had this issue as well, is invariably you're going to lose someone. And the moment you lose someone, you can mess up all this little neat, I have a really neat little scheduling formula that goes haywire if there's an odd number of teams. And so then someone gets unhappy, and then you play more crossovers. And
Well, the winner, as I look at this list, to me, one of the winners is Riverside. Getting
Agreed.
closer.
now you say closer, though. They may say, we're going to drive to Madison Plains and West Jeff and Fairbanks.
Well, but
They used to go to Fairbanks in the old
closer,
WCC.
closer, and also maybe some tradition there with Riverside Mechanics for Riverside Triad, Riverside Fairbanks.
And maybe, yeah, and then crossover against Ben Logan, the Lake, Graham. I mean, that would be really nice for Riverside. And then the one thing I mentioned off air that I think a mega conference, if it was ever considered, which it does get talked about, on the message boards, think of how great the smaller sports would be, the wrestling tournament. If you are Triad and Bird, that OHC meet's okay, but it's not always that great. The TRC meet, I've got to think, I don't even know if there was one. It can't. Well, no, Milton's pretty good. Milton's all right. Covington. So maybe that's not fair. Miami East, really strong. So yeah, maybe that's not totally fair. Now Miami East was a team I didn't consider for this that maybe could make some sense, but again, you get in that corner there, whether it's southeast or southwest. But imagine that wrestling tournament where all these schools are in the same tournament, and you're naming a champ for each thing. Imagine the swim meet. Imagine the track meet. Is that what the OHC or the OCC does? Do they do a track meet with everybody?
I honestly don't know.
And you don't have to. I mean, maybe you say, we don't want, if you're a Triad, maybe Triad Track says, I don't want to run track against Bell Fountain.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Now, the fan in me says, why don't we have a meet where all three have their own meets and then the champions compete against each other? That gets a little goofy, but it's interesting. A lot of options scheduling-wise here.
Do you think that, I'll just speak for the other schools, Bell Fountain really happy with the CBC? My answer would be yes. Right now, yes.
Absolutely.
Indian Lake really happy right now? I would say
I
yes.
feel like they are, but I don't know that. But yes, I don't ever hear it otherwise.
Benjamin Logan, kind of.
I think that's the one that, I've had talks with people that they don't want to play Bell Fountain in football. And they went for a while, they didn't want to play Bell Fountain in basketball. And that frustrates me. I don't think that should be on the table. Because as a wrestling guy, I do want to wrestle Ben Logan, but I could say I didn't. Ben Logan, I coached for 5 years. We dueled Ben Logan 5 times, and we beat him once. So, if I had coached for 20, I'd have beat him 4 times. Then I would say I don't want to wrestle him
Well,
anymore.
plus to the CBC, if you look at you have to go through Graham wrestling in like the league meet. Wow.
Yeah, but I look at it as who cares? It's all exhibition. You want to win a league title. So I get, if you're in a division with teams you can't beat, I think that is more understandable. But if you tell me I'm playing a crossover that doesn't count, who cares? If you kick my teeth in wrestling, none of it matters until the postseason. You kick my teeth in and we'll just get better. But I think I'm wired a little different in that regard. I would guess so to your thought, how soon until Tecumseh and Bethel decide to go to the Miami Valley League? Tecumseh had their chance and chose not to, and that's Sydney, Troy, Piqua. The problem is Tecumseh's not very good right now.
I don't see them leaving anytime soon. I feel pretty good about them actually.
I do too, because they're not very good. And I like Tecumseh, but if they were better, I think they'd say, it makes sense to just drive up 75 for all my games. So we worry about London and Alder, maybe way to a lesser degree. Shawnee to me has always felt safe, as is KR, because they're strong, but they're not so strong. They're just kind of middle of the road. Yeah, I think Northeasterns, Northwesterns are solid. I think North Union, always keep an eye on them because geography. Anytime a team's in the corner of a square, you worry that they'll get. But they lived in purgatory, did they not? Didn't North Union, London, and Alder struggle with league affiliation?
Yeah, well, North Union, I think back in the day was what's called the MOAC, Midwest Ohio Athletic Conference, played like Marion Pleasant, teams that way. But they are kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's geography. You're in the middle of nowhere. They're really in the middle of Nowheresville. North Union to me.
Yeah, no doubt.
Belfont's kind of in the middle of Nowheresville for Division III size schools.
Right.
So this is. Have you run this by anybody else?
No, I just made it today.
You're quite the smart
Oh,
guy.
I don't. Well, let's be honest. I just combined the OHC and the CBC and added Riverside, but I did divide them up into divisions or conference divisions. I don't know. I think these conversations could happen. I'm not saying this exact version, but at the end of the day, there's only so many things you can do because you are always going to be even numbered. So you're going to do 18 or you're going to do 20. And then what someone invariably will say is, let's do 4 of 5, which I hate, but I know kind of why people do it. It's to get the exact schools they want to play. My concern, and I did write this down, as a Bell Fountain guy, and I've said this before on this podcast even over the last few years, there's some doomsday situations for Bell Fountain where we at Bell Fountain could find ourselves on the outside looking in. The first thing that could happen, and I wrote down the schools that if I was them and I wanted to get rid of Bell Fountain, London, and Alder, Shawnee, KR, Urbana, Bethel, Green, and Graham, Ben Logan, the Lake, Northeastern, and Northwestern. That's a pretty good 10-team league that could play each other just like the WBL, the MAC, where you play 9 games, you play 1 out of conference, and you're done with it. Now, what's the negative? I mean, really, the only negative is Bethel to Benjamin Logan. That's not that bad. I mean, geography-wise, you're in pretty good shape. You're basically up 68. That's the school's up 68, maybe 15 miles east or west of it. I don't want to give them any ideas, but that's a conference that could get together.
I know you got a couple of the topics here. If you could just pick any league for Bell Fountain, I guess we're going to kind of be selfish for this. I'm going to kind of throw some schools out. You can pick and choose and tell me what you like, don't like. Bell Fountain, Sidney, Kenton, or Banff. What needs one of the kind of biggies? Tecumseh, Springfield, Shawnee,
Kenton
London.
to Tecumseh is a long haul.
That's true.
It's a real long haul. I think Kenton to Bell Fountain's a long haul. I swear, I've said all my life that 20-some minute drive to Kenton is the worst 20-minute drive in the world. It just feels so freaking long. If you tell me I'm driving to Urbana and Kenton, I think it's like the same thing. But driving to Urbana feels like nothing. But driving to Kenton seems like forever. My perfect Bell Fountain is honestly, realistically, would be don't go any further south than Urbana. Like if we were starting from scratch, and I like the Springfield schools. I like Shawnee, KR, and Tecumseh. It would probably be go as far south as Urbana and include Ben Logan, the Lake, Kenton, Sidney, Wapak. That would kind of be my region.
All right.
But that's not realistic. Honestly, my perfect realistic is the CBC to stay together because we talked about this last week. The WBL is not a good solution. When Bell Fountain was in the WBL, Defiance was not. Defiance replaced Bell Fountain. With Defiance in that league, that's an hour and a half drive. You ever driven Defiance?
Never been to the town, actually.
What?
Never have been there.
I lost that bet, Tips. You've never driven Defiance. Let's go to Defiance tomorrow night. We'll go get dinner at Defiance. I've been to the Frickers in Defiance. We wrestled up there. Van Wert's a tough one, too. That's like an hour and 20, I'd say, and Defiance is like an hour 40 maybe. Bad. So I don't see that. And the MVL, it's tough sledding, man. You better get good. You better be good in basketball. You better be good in football because you're going to play Tip City. You're going to play Troy, Piqua, Sidney, Butler. Now, there's some weak sisters in the MVL. Rumors are they'd like to get rid of Greenville. I always wonder, would they try to kick Greenville out and add Tecumseh? It would make sense for all of them, but not Tecumseh, because Tecumseh would start going 0-10. They would get their teeth kicked in. I don't know. I'll stand by the fact I think that we're about to see. I've never known these tremors not to lead to more. And, someone is sitting here unhappy, and they're maybe not telling anyone yet, and then something like this triggers it. Yeah. So that's my shot at it.
Only takes a couple. Like if Alder and London leave, which I don't think they are right now, but I mean, you're right. It only takes a couple. And you got
Now, if Alder and London left right now, let's go down that path. Would it not do the CBC a favor in its current state? You're adding Tip and Greenan, Bethel and Greenan. You're replacing them. And then all of a sudden the big bad wolf's gone. London's the person that nobody wants to play. I mean, they're kicking everybody's ass. Alder's pretty good. So now Bellefontaine is the big bad wolf, which is, still a wolf, but not London. You know what I'm saying? I would argue that'd be good for the league. What it'd be bad for is Bellefontaine. Because at Bellefontaine, we want to play Alder and London. I've never been a part of any staff that didn't want to play good football teams. You know what I'm saying? But actually, no, now that you say that, it'd be good for the league. As much as I enjoy having them, everybody quit complaining because then their crossover games would be at worst Bellefontaine. So there you go. That's how you fix the league. I spent all this time on it today, and you just fix it. We're kicking out London, we're kicking out Alder, and we're gonna make the team weaker, make the league weaker.
I don't want to do that.
Now the problem is the league is not as strong as it could be, and that's what I love about London and Alder is they brought some excellence that we lost when we lost Tip, and I couldn't stand Tip. I'm so glad they're gone. That's not a team I want to do business with. Now, in fairness to the people of Tip City, some of that's 15 years ago administrators that are gone, but that was a team that nobody in the league liked messing with. A guy named Schomper that was their AD. He was a tough one to work with. So, all right, well, Tips. It is the postseason. We talked about this last week. We saw a lot of things happen. It felt like everything snuck up on us. Girls basketball is done in the county. It's done. West Liberty Salem fell to Fort Recovery, and Indian Lake fell to Urbana. We talked about the Pouncy girl on the show last Thursday. Those were probably they were the two best area teams. Well, Bellefontaine. Bellefontaine fell a week ago to Bethel. That's right. Yeah, I knew that. Riverside fell in the first round, and then Benjamin Logan drew like Alder, so they're done. So girls basketball is done in the county. Boys basketball doesn't have a ton of legs left. No, that's not true. That's not true. Bellefontaine plays Saturday against Bethel. Ridgemont, who we talked about, athlete of the week this week, which is getting a lot of play on there. Connor Mans, guard for Ridgemont, senior guard, had a good game against Macomb and Corey Rawson. They're playing Jefferson. They are favored. They're the 3 seed. I don't know much about that Northwestern district, but Ridgemont, first league title in like a decade. Great season up in Ridgeway. I mean, you see the football team, 9-1, I believe, 8-2, 8-2. And now the basketball team's league champs. West Liberty Salem has been eliminated. They played Greenview and lost, but West Liberty, we talked about, has been decimated by injuries.
I've never seen anything like them. I'm old when it comes to stuff. Their top 3 players, or 3 of their top players, certainly their top 2 players, which would be Turner Lovewood and Brevin Loudon, significant knee injuries, and the same thing happened to Carson Poppy, who maybe doesn't score quite as much, but as a senior, he's a tough guy, big guy. They lost 3 of them. I've never seen it.
Good news is, ton of dudes back. I noticed, I didn't realize Loudon and Poppy were juniors. I think they only lose Reams. Yeah,
Poppy's a junior.
Poppy's a junior. They lose Reams and the Logwood kid. Yeah, the 2 best. I remember the best, and then the Reams kid was kind of the best after those guys got hurt. So they're going to be, we talked about that last week. They're going to be pretty good for the next few years. Riverside's tournament draw.
Playing tonight, right?
Playing tonight, okay.
Northeastern.
Playing Northeastern. They're the
That's
faves.
close.
Yeah, they're the faves, seed-wise. They're the faves. And then Ben Logan.
Plays Alter, I think
Tough.
Saturday.
Yeah,
Kettering Alter,
tough.
that is.
Yeah.
Defending state champs.
Tough draw for the Raiders. So, honestly, as we sit here next Thursday, we hope to still have teams to talk about. I mean, Bellefontaine, I would say favored against Bethel, but play Oakwood next. Probably be Oakwood or KR.
Cambridge, probably Oakwood.
And that's probably next like Tuesday or Wednesday.
Right, and I would guess Bellefontaine would be the dog in that if they're still.
Certainly if it's Oakwood, just seed-wise, that's a 2 seed. But, we don't know. The SWBL, kind of hard to say with basketball. Swimming is done. Everyone, I thought, not that I know swimming, but it felt like there was a couple swimmers, Abrasio and Kuntz, and then even the Sweeney. And Indian Lake had a couple good swimmers too. And so did West Lib. West Lib had his song kid that was pretty good. What I learned in swimming is that there's only 2 divisions.
And the Southwest District.
Yeah.
It is very hard. It's a short list of local swimmers that have made it to state.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I also learned that when you're younger, some of those sports that, the non-football and basketball, being young doesn't hurt you as much. It feels like swimming. It kind of like there's some dues to pay. Like you don't just come in as a freshman and just dominate. Like
I agree.
they talk about Brooklyn Kuntz, how
Really good.
They compare her to Amy Farmer.
Right, really good.
So I heard that and I thought, well, of course she's going to go to the state meet. And then when I talked to, I have Elena Ullman in class, and she was like, well, no. And she kind of pushed back. She was like, that's not very realistic that she's going to go to state as a freshman. She said Amy Farmer didn't go to state as a freshman. I said, well, I didn't know that. I just assumed that she did. She was so good. She was a state runner-up, junior and senior year? So, they pay their dues, and, like, I guess, football and basketball, you don't start right away. Bowling, Cooper Crouch, Riverside, state district champ. Can this dude win a state meet? I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I'd say he's got. Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine.
so the Riverside team won the state last year or 2 years ago,
I think it was 2 years ago.
and his brother was their best bowler.
Yes.
I guess my question is, what is the highest a local kid has finished in that tournament? In the state, we haven't had a state bowling individual champion, have we?
No.
I don't feel so. So
No.
he's only a freshman, or I think a freshman.
Freshman.
Definitely a freshman. District, Ben Logan boys have made it to the districts. I don't think they bowled very well. And I don't know bowling, but I've been following that team. I did not see some of the names, like the Buckenroth kid is their best kid. He was not the high scorer. So I would guess like any team when your high score guy's not.
But I would also, everything you said is true, but you just survive in advance. Because
Right.
next it's like
no
golf.
advantage.
It's like golf. You might shoot. Today I shot 50 golf. The next day I shot a 38. So maybe they just go a little off. They still advance.
We never, Coach Hoyt was looking. We never got an answer on Bell Fountain. Did you hear
Girls
anything?
moved on.
Girls moved on. Girls were yesterday, right?
Boys today, I don't know. I don't know
Well,
how
the update stopped at, hey, they've got a chance. So kind of we thought maybe means they maybe didn't make it. Generally if you go radio silent, it's not a good thing. So kind of disappointed there. Not that I knew, but I felt like that Bell Fountain boys team was pretty solid. Wrestling is the big one coming up this weekend. Sectional tournament time. New look. Division II's at Northwestern with Bell Fountain and Ben Logan. Bell Fountain is predicted to get 2 guys out. Certainly they got a chance for 3. Benjamin Logan, I was a little surprised. This Dubstat guy I've been talking about, he knows his stuff, and he's maybe a little more pessimistic at the Ben Logan Lake kids. Not that he's pessimistic at the kids, it's the sectionals are tough. I think he predicted like 7 from Ben Logan and maybe 6 from the Lake, which is still really good, but not maybe if you'd asked me 2 months ago, I said, they'll get 10 guys out, and maybe it's just the composition of the sectional. But West Liberty, Salem, and Indian Lake will be at the D3 meet at Versailles, which that is, we talked about that last week. That's a super tough sectional. Versailles alone is good. The Graham Falcons will be there. I had an article from 1999 on the site yesterday. No, it was today. That was yesterday. 1999, Indian Lake beat Graham at the sectional meet. And now that's a little pre-Graham machine, but Graham's always been a machine. I mean, Graham's been a machine since Dow McDonald was in high school. Really starting about 1981, 82 with Jim and Jeff.
Yeah.
I know they weren't the same thing they are now. They were like a normal good team that would have a few really good guys and then have holes. But really for the last 25 years, they've been almost unbeatable. So,
And I thought of you over the weekend. I got a couple things to wrap the show with for you. You really took a deep dive into wrestling last week. We talked about Indian Lake. We talked about, I think, each guy. And the 215 thing was interesting. We won't see one of these again for a long time. The 2 top 10, top 15 guys in the state, probably in the same weight class. For Indian Lake, it would be Owen Pummel, who might win the state championship. He's going to be in the mix. And then Aaron Rapp, the freshman phenom. Well, we didn't think Rapp would wrestle, but he did wrestle.
sounded
Did you
like,
hear anything- did you hear
yeah, I don't know if that was somebody did tell me that. I don't remember what it was. If Pummel was just still beat up. Yeah. Now, someone had mentioned there was going to be a wrestle off, and I don't know that. Someone mentioned that to me. That would be relatively unprecedented, but I don't know. I mean, how people do their business. Yeah, I mean, it was certainly a guy like me that's on the outside looking in and says Owen Pummel's ranked number 2 in the state. Yeah, I don't know if that's a thing. I haven't looked at the entry grid. Should be on Bomb's page, which means it shows they'll have a wrestler. I don't know if the seed nominations are due until tomorrow. Then you'll know exactly who's wrestling. I mean, my assumption is it's Owen Pummel. But yeah, no, we talked about that Aaron Rapp is the number 9 ranked kid in the state, at least according to Dubstat. And it does, there is a question of would you let especially a sport like wrestling sometimes struggles with numbers. Would you let 2 guys from the same school compete? It's a little goofy with the team score stuff, but I don't know. I mean, he could be on non-scoring. That's how they would do it if it was a regular season tournament, is Aaron Rapp just wouldn't score points for his team, but he could still win it. Does that make sense? Like you choose one guy that can score. But I don't know. What I know is that Aaron Rapp is a stud. Like you said, phenom. He is, I don't think, trying to think back, it's an interesting trivia question. Who's the best JV wrestler in Logan County history?
Well, he's right there.
Yeah, I mean, he's on a short list. I'm trying to think, because Graham has had that over the years. Logan County schools don't usually have that. Now, first of all, usually you can bump up. Because they're bigger, that's limited. Plus, Chris Timms is there. Bumping from 250, is it 215 still now? 215 to 285 or 275, whatever it is now. They jump forth. I can't keep track. That's a huge jump. It's not like jumping from I wrestled 140. It was like me bumping to 145. It's not a huge deal. Jumping from 215 to heavy is a huge deal. Plus, Chris Timms is good. He's ranked like 9th in the state. So very seldom in our county's history would anybody be in that situation because they bump up one weight class. So I don't know. Back in the old days, Graham would have a state champion 103-pounder. The one guy that always stands out to me is Ryan Taylor. Ryan Taylor is one of the better lightweights that Graham's had. He and Johnny Maurice wrestled, and he was behind Nick Bruschetta. You're talking 2 state champions at 3, and they were light 3, so they couldn't bump up.
So Ryan related to David Taylor?
No, totally unrelated. David Taylor is from Wyoming.
Yeah, I knew that.
Ryan Taylor, as far as I know, was a homegrown.
Plus, kind of getting off the rails a little bit, I haven't talked about David Taylor in years. He was always one of those lean, maybe in college like 150, 160. I just could not believe how big he was. And I never saw him wrestle for years, but like when he got into the Olympic stuff, I guess, and to get bigger.
Well, he's a grown man now. I'd guess he walks around at 210 pounds.
Okay.
I mean, and the thing with Taylor is even when he was light, he was tall. He was tall. I mean, he was a super undersized freshman. I think he weighed like 90-some pounds his freshman year. He had to try to gain weight as a freshman. Of course, he won the state title and then won it for 4 years. He's the greatest. He's no doubt he's the greatest high school wrestler I've ever seen. It was kind of between him and Bo Jordan, and I don't think that's really close anymore. But I remember David Taylor one time at a meet. He asked Mike Bible. Mike Bible was the head coach, and I was the assistant. And he asked Mike Bible. He looked at him. He said, "Where is Bell Fountain?" He didn't have a clue where Bell Fountain was, but he was from Wyoming, so he didn't make that track up 235 too often across 47. He's the head coach at Oklahoma State now. Are you aware of that, Tips?
I knew that. Yeah.
He's a guy that Tom Ryan's obviously done an incredible job at Ohio State, and you never look elsewhere. I just always wonder, like, if Tom Ryan didn't exist or he was retiring, because Tom Ryan got a horrible accident there
Last year.
Yeah, like, would David Taylor have considered Ohio State? Oklahoma State and Ohio State. That historically Oklahoma State's probably better. They are, but maybe not in the last 25 years. Oklahoma State's more historical with John Smith, and I know I'm sure Brady Hyatt, if he listens to this, he's going to tell me exactly where I'm wrong, but he sometimes texts me about it. I don't think, at least in my
dedicated followers.
I feel like since I've been watching, Ohio State would be ahead of Oklahoma, and a lot of that's credit to Tom Ryan. That's the first thing he's going to say. But David Taylor is a transformational figure. You make him your head coach, like Cale Sanderson, you pretty much guarantee you're going to have a top 3 team in the country. And I'm not even following it right now, so I'm curious what Oklahoma State is.
I saw this and I forgot to look at the results. I know last Friday Ohio State hosted Penn State. Was that a close duel at all?
I think it was close early. Lorette would know. Lorette was that duel close, Ohio State and Penn State. It was close early on, and then Penn State ran away with it. Yeah, there must have been a result early that kind of went Ohio State's way. But yeah, Penn State is Graham right now of college. Like, it's not even close. And I don't think Penn State. It hasn't been close. Now, Ohio State did win it. Penn State did win it 2000 what 19 Ohio State went in 2018, 17 somewhere
Right
there.
in there.
Um,
Can Iowa give Penn State a close match, a close battle to?
I think Iowa's number 2. Lorette is Iowa the second best, and they've always been up there, but they haven't been super close to Penn State. It doesn't feel like to me. But that's Cale. I mean, Cale Sanderson is wrestling uniquely is about the coach, and a lot of sports are, but way more in wrestling.
Okay.
All right, Tips. Well, I do appreciate. I know you got things to do and things that. We're getting a live look in here. Bell Fountain finished 20th and failed to move on. Oh, but Rory Pierce did make it as a qualifier. So senior Rory Pierce.
Boys bowling.
Boys bowling, I'm sorry, yes. So Bell Fountain's bowling season is done, but Rory Pierce will roll on, literally, go to the district meet. You know where the district bowling meet is?
Usually it's Dayton.
Same kind of place?
Well, I think Beaver Creek is
Yeah.
the section, but it's Dayton, and then the state Columbus.
Those bowling meets are a zoo.
Yeah, they are.
they're-
They are crazy.
It's not a good place to be a short guy.
No,
You can't
well,
see.
It's not a good place to be in any guy. It's just, it is. It's crowded. It's like being on High Street.
They need to put like a closed circuit television in the Pinbuster pub and just let the guys sit in there and get a keynote ticket and just kind of watch it on another TV. But Tips, I appreciate you coming out.
Last thing, do you think these 7 divisions? We talked about this a little bit last week. I'll wrap this up in 30 seconds. Are they here to stay?
Oh yeah, they're not going anywhere. You're gonna hand money back over? No, that was a money grab, and I don't. Like I said last week, I don't hate it because I love more athletics. People complain about bowl games. I don't. Give me more football. Give me more tournament sports. Does it water it down? Sure. Winning a state title with 7 divisions isn't as meaningful as winning it with 1. But where is the right number? I don't know. I don't really care. The topic kind of bores me. I just like talking sports, and if it makes it more competitive, it kind of makes it more fun as a fan.
Some of us older people don't do well with change. I would guess in a few years we're all kind of like, we're used to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like football, If you're old enough, Dow McDonald played with 3 classes, and then it was 5, then it was 6, now it's 7, and I bet you, mark my word, I bet it's 8 before too awful long. That's just kind of the way it goes. They're never going to get smaller. The NCAA tournament's talking, Harmon and I were watching the other day, they're talking about going to 72. Is it 72 teams they're trying to go to? Or are they already there? They're trying to go to 76.
I think it's 68 as far as I know.
They're trying to go to 76.
But that football may be 14 or 16.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're going to 16 with no buys, and it'll be 32, and then, yeah, it never ends. Somebody got to make more money. All right, Tips. Certainly thanks to Hoyt Buckingham. He always comes here and helps us out. We don't know how to log into this stuff, and always thanks to Paul Newland. I don't think I talked about Top of Ohio Radon at the beginning. We definitely want to recognize our sponsor, Top of Ohio Radon. Paul will come out to your house and give you a radon test. He'll check your levels. Radon's the second leading cause of lung cancer. It is a silent deal that you'll have no idea you have, especially if you have an old house. Paul come out, got a quick little thing he does, and he'll give you a reading on your levels. He'll let you know if your radon's too high. He's got a quick fix for you. It's relatively cheap, and if it's not, then he'll let you know that. You can sleep well at night knowing that you're good. Give him a call at 937-935-2806. Always want to thank Brian Harmon and the Craft Emporium and the guys that come out every Thursday night. Was a little quieter crowd tonight. There's a couple of the loud onlookers that are taking a rest tonight. We'll be back next Thursday. We'll be talking tournament basketball here, NCAA tournament. Harmon, we're along with Ron's Pizza and Craft Emporium. We're talking about doing a bracket maybe, and we'll have some stuff to talk about that. So see you next Thursday.
Wow, that's quite shocking.
Dude, I took Northwestern, but I took the points. I almost took the money line. I said all day